For thousands of years, countless sovereign states have risen, fallen, and left their mark on the course of human history. Sometimes it's hard to remember that at one point, each of these countries started off with an idea, a shared belief, or the conviction that they could govern themselves better than an existing system already in place. What if, in the modern world, we were able to make our own new country, a new society with agreed upon laws and codes of conduct? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about just that and how you can start your own new country. Before we begin, I want to preface this by saying that all the ideas covered in this video are from an article published by Balaji Srinivasan on his excellent newsletter, 1729. It's something that I highly recommend you all check out and read for yourself. I'll leave a link below in the description to his Twitter, the article, and the 1729 website. But first things first, why even start a new country? The most basic reason is because we want to build something without a historical constraint. Imagine that you have a piece of paper that's already been written on, land you have to clear from previous use, or even Legos that somebody gave to you in some random way. It's a lot easier to build something from scratch than to have to disassemble everything and then put it back together exactly how you wanted it in the first place. And we see a lot of this in action today. People buying millions of acres in vacant land, hundreds of thousands of new startups being incorporated every year, and as we're all becoming aware, a lot of internet communities and currencies are starting to pop up. And by a lot, I mean a lot. The value and the wealth that has been created over the last few decades is hard to overstate, but it hasn't always been this way or been this easy. In the past, making a fresh start was technologically infeasible, politically impossible, and judicially punishable. There are a lot of reasons why this is the perfect time to create a blank slate of what we want the future to look like, and we're going to explore a few of those reasons right now. And so, how do we actually start a new country? According to Balaji, there are at least 6 ways that have been publicly discussed. 3 conventional and 3 a little out of the box. I'm going to introduce all of these at first, but our 7th and final option is what he deems is the best out of all of them. The most conventional way of starting a new country is by election. This means winning sufficient enough power to either A, rewrite the laws of an existing state, so think FDR and the New Deal, or B, carve out a new one from scratch with the consent of the international community. Think the 1999 East Timorese independence referendum. This is the most common path, but sometimes it's very crowded and just isn't feasible. The second way to start a new country is, by definition, a little radical, and that is revolution. Some historical examples of this would be the French Revolution and even the establishment of the USSR, which happened nearly 100 years ago. Some momentous and important elections like the Reagan Revolution sometimes go by the name, but most of the time it includes a lot of violence and a lot of bloodshed. In a similar vein to revolution contained within the state, war is another option of starting a new country. It's important to note that war isn't independent from elections or revolutions. The 1933 German general election, the Russian Revolution of 1917, and the American Revolution of 1776 are all examples of previous changing polities that eventually led to war. Again, this isn't the most desirable way of starting a new country, but it is a way that borders have shifted in the past. As Anakin Skywalker would say,
"This is where the fun begins."
Now we start to explore some of the less conventional ways of starting a new country, beginning with micronations. 2 of the most famous examples are 1, the Principality of Sealand, and 2, the Free Republic of Liberland. If you can believe it, the population of Sealand is a whopping 2 people and a total landmass of 0.004 square kilometers or 0.0015 square miles. The Republic of Liberland is a little bigger at 7 square kilometers or 2.7 square miles, but as of the time of this recording, they have a population of 0. As much as I love and believe in Liberland and Sealand, no one else really cares, and that's the problem. A state, like a currency, is a social affair. A few randos in the middle of nowhere couldn't organize a military, enforce laws, or be recognized by other nations. That being said, most governments won't really care if you parade around in your backyard unless you pose a threat to sovereignty or have the potential to be violent. But no matter what, I'm always going to be rooting for you, Sealand. The next way of starting a new country is a pretty interesting concept called seasteading, which was coined by Patrice Friedman and backed by Peter Thiel. The concept basically states that because cruise ships exist and are becoming increasingly less expensive to produce, we can move from spending a few weeks on the water to semi-permanent habitation on international waters. In theory, this is really cool and it might even work, but there just aren't any functioning examples of this today. The next option is one that's been circulating around social media in the minds of a lot of billionaires, and that is space. Space exploration started at the government level, and we're all familiar with it from movies and TV shows. Because of that, we can conceptualize it a little bit more, and we might even think of it as being socially acceptable in some circles. The main drawback of it currently is that a lot of people consider it to be technically infeasible and honestly just crazy. I've seen Alien, trust me, I do not want that in my life. However, there are companies out there like Elon Musk's SpaceX who are outlining the logistics of what a new state would look like on Mars. And now we arrive to the final and preferred method that Balaji proposes, the cloud country. His idea is to go cloud first and land last. Instead of starting with something physical, you would start with a digital community. Let's take Yes Theory, for example, and the community that they've been able to build out over the last few years. Imagine if the Yes fam suddenly wanted to start their own new virtual social network, and then eventually their own city, and then even their own country. The state would have to start as an open source project with an economy centered around remote work. One of the other main issues that exists is that it's very easy to be mean to people online. So because of that, we would need some type of levels of in-person civility, which I know is a lot easier said than done. Architecture can be simulated in VR with art and literature that reflects the values of the Yes fam, or whatever other group wants to start their own country. Once you have a sufficient enough number of people with aligned values, you can crowdfund territory in the real world. Even if the borders don't necessarily touch and are a big clump of land, we can think of it kind of like countries today. What they would essentially be are separate enclaves. And the cool thing is, these communities wouldn't even need to acquire all their territory at one place or at one time. It can connect 1,000 apartments, 100 homes, all in different cities around the world, with its own civil government and capital in the cloud. Over time, community members can migrate between these enclaves and crowdfund territory nearby, each offering its own opportunities for expansion. Balaji points out that one way you can think of this is like ethnic diasporas, which are internationally dispersed but are connected by communication channels that stem from a country of origin. The interesting part is that this would really look like a reverse diaspora, a community that first forms on the internet, builds a culture online, and then only comes together in person to build dwellings and structures. In a way, you can think of each physical outpost of this digital community like a cloud embassy, similar to the grassroots Bitcoin embassies that are popping up all over the world. New recruits can either come to the virtual or physical environment, try it out for themselves, and decide whether they want to leave or stay. It's easy to think that this could be a Sealand or Liberland situation where people look at these places like a micronation, but the difference is using the leverage of the internet to scale this hundreds and thousands of times the size. Yes Theory has 6.8 million subscribers on YouTube. If each one of those subscribers decided that they wanted to create a country with aligned values, let's call it Yeslandia, that country would be bigger than Denmark, Finland, Norway, Costa Rica, New Zealand, Ireland, and nearly 120 other countries in the world today. The main difference between the seventh option of cloud countries versus the previously six mentioned is that in some ways it's practical and in other ways, not so much. We all know it's possible to grow a community of millions of people on YouTube and other social platforms, that digital currencies are becoming more accepted, and that we can create buildings in VR and eventually crowdfund them. What the concept does again is that it takes all the existing technology on the internet, goes around political roadblocks, and the need for future physical innovation. Finally, we must be careful on what we define a new country as. Some people might think of it like settling on a completely new territory, like Mars, while others might think of it like a government change. Instead of using these definitions, Balaji says that we should use societal and numerical definitions of what a new country is. But here's where it may get a little complicated. The numerical definition means that we can use a website with data visualization techniques similar to coinmarketcap.com to see how many members each cloud country has, the acreage of real estate owned by those members, and then on-chain gross domestic product being tracked real time. This then leads us to what the societal definition of what a new country could be. This is often thought to be a new member of the United Nations and is internationally recognized by other countries as a legitimate polity capable of self-determination. Again, sorry Sealand. This combination of absolute and relative metrics matches the trends of cryptocurrencies. After being ignored and mocked, Bitcoin attained a $1 billion market cap, a numerical success, and was listed on CNBC and Bloomberg along blue chip stocks like Apple, Disney, Coca-Cola, and other well-known companies we're familiar with. Balaji notes that by 2020, Bitcoin had changed the trajectory of the People's Bank of China, the International Monetary Fund, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and the World Bank. Money inherently has technical and political aspects, and once Bitcoin had proven that it couldn't be easily counterfeited or hacked, the belief of tens of millions of crypto holders brought the value of its market cap from zero to more than $1 trillion. As previously mentioned, a cloud community in between 1 to 10 million digitally committed citizens would be a middle-of-the-pack size compared to the 193 recognized sovereign states of the UN. Even though these numbers would seem impressive in theory, there are also a few other variables to account for, like time spent in the virtual property, the percentage of net worth stored in the currency, and the fraction of contracts found in the community. There are a lot of other variables to consider, but think of this as an interesting place to start. Going forward, I hope to do more research and find out how we can take all these existing pieces and put them together to create something called the network state. Stay tuned on how we might be able to do that. I want to give a huge shout out and thanks again to Balaji Srinivasan for his incredible blog post on this and his website 1729. I hope to keep making videos on the subject because they just fascinate me. I must also say that I'm personally no expert in the subject matter. I'm just a curious person who really likes to learn, and I would love to share that experience with all of you. If you could take a couple seconds to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below, I would really appreciate it. Also, feel free to share this video with a friend who you think would be interested in the subject matter as well. Thank you for taking the time to watch us all the way through. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.